Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the authority positioning expert. And what we are talking to, or who we're talking with today, is Michael Grabow, the human and organizational performance expert. Michael, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you, Mike. It's so good to be able to be on your show, my friend.
I've been really looking forward to our conversation as well. And I know this is one of the early episodes in 2020, and I know we want to talk about what that really means, because I think that a lot of people, you start a new decade and that's a new first, and then you start thinking about 2020 as, the vision and clarity. So I want to get into that, but first give us a little bit of background on your experience and what led you to your current field of training and leadership and starting your company, The Essential Link.
Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Well, originally I'm from a little town called Yucca Valley down in Southern California in the high desert is where I'm originally from. And coming out of high school, I think a lot of us were in that same space of not really knowing what we wanted to do. My dad was a general contractor. I really didn't want to be able to do some work. But in fact, it's kind of funny because my dad would actually say, boy, you need to find a job where you're just watching other people work. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I do that? And he's like, I don't know. So I started riding with the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department. I thought it would be a great thing to be able to be a law enforcement specialist. So I was talking to my substation sergeant, what should I do? And he provided some advice, which was join the Air Force. And then when you're done with that, come on back to us and we'll hire you because you're just too young to be hired right now. And I'm like, sweet. So I joined the United States Air Force with that plan in my back pocket. And it was like, okay, I got a plan. It's going to work. 2.5 years into that experience, I started having a blind spot in my left eye. They said, probably not a good idea for you to be carrying a gun. And I'm like, sweet, what can I do? And they said, how would you like to work for a commander and then tell everybody else what to do? I'm like 20 years old. I'm looking both ways going, really? There's a career field in the Air Force like that? He goes, yeah, it's the training career field. And in December of 81, I hate to tell everybody those years, but in December of 81, I stepped into the role of being a training NCO, and the Air Force sends you off to about 6 weeks of trainings, and I came back as a certified training professional. It was kind of exciting because when I came back to the place that I came back, we had the first KC-10, which was a air refueler that actually gave the military complete world capability, which was it could actually receive gas and pass gas midair. And not knowing that projects are doorways to leadership, I took it on. I designed the workplace training programs for the aircraft maintenance folks. And 3 years later, got some inspections, and they said, hey, that was really good. They gave me an opportunity to start traveling around the world and helping other people design and develop workplace training programs. And what I thought was going to be a one and done in the military, it turned into 20 years.
Wow.
I retired here in Sacramento 20 years ago and started working with organizations on being able to design and develop their training programs. And also it became more and more refined with the idea of leadership, working with the leadership component. But that's a whole bunch more history than I know you wanted, Mike. I apologize for going that deep.
No, it's great because I think a lot of people coming out of the military have the leg up in the sense of diligence and consistency and perseverance and things like that. And I think that translates so well over into the business world.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I got to tell you, my life is still wanting to be able to take care of each and every one of our first responders, because it is a job that is right at the tip of the spear. And leadership has to be there, provided in the moment. You can't sit back and go, okay, who's going to make the decision? To me, leadership is all about who's making decisions, and also if the decision isn't exactly what you wanted it to be, can you actually create the next step? What does that next step look like? And can you recuperate from any kind of failure? Because to me, even though I'm not a real big proponent of wanting to be in the space of failure. Failure is probably one of our best teachers.
Yeah.
You know, being able to be provided a project, sitting in the space of being able to do that, and making clear decisions as stuff is happening. You know, and so in 2007, 2008, with the downturn of our economy, I started realizing that people were losing hope. And so what I started looking at was, what was hope? What can hope be? It can't be a strategy. It's just got to be a space of being able to put things into place. And so that's where I came up with a human and organizational performance expert. I was providing hope to people who were really kind of struggling in that space. And today, it's great to be able to be in the spaces that we're in. And I want to kind of get to the place where you and I were talking about a little bit earlier, which is, you know, I'm talking to a lot of my clients and a lot of people around about, friends and compadres, and there's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of excitement about this year. And the consistent message I've been hearing is, this year is going to be successful. I have a clear vision. I have a clear idea. I am executing, and I'm excited about what the steps are going to be able to get to the next level, whatever that next level might be for each person. And so that's where I've been finding some enthusiasm. What about for you, Mike? Are you seeing the same thing out there on the highway?
I am. I feel like it's more of a focus on the actual number 2020, which is related to vision. And I think that a lot of people, it doesn't matter whether it's coaches, consultants, companies, leadership teams, they're keying in on this vision and clarity, and let's set our goals right. Let's have our mission statement right. Let's just do the right thing, and all focused on this vision. And I would love to fast forward 12 months and be at January 1 or 2 or 3 of 2021 and look back at the year and go, you know what? That was almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then I think what would need to happen is, what was it that caused that extra upswell in excitement, and look at the self-fulfilling prophecy that it did, make happen in reality. And then what is it about 2021 that we can go, oh, well, these numbers would mean, and how can you replicate that? So I find it really interesting that it doesn't have to take a whole lot to get that mindset and that, vision calibrated in so that you get the results you want. So I agree with you 100%. What are you thinking and seeing in your upcoming training that you're going to do related to clarity and vision?
Well, first off, with the whole idea of having a crystal clear vision, we've known this for many, many years. You get what you dream for. You know, and the problem is it's not just about the dreaming. It's about being able to see what the next steps are. Again, about leaders that are under pressure, in the middle of the fray, doing all the different things that we're doing, those that can actually see the next steps. The great one, he says he doesn't, pass the puck to where people are. He passes the puck where people are going to be. And so as leaders, we've got to be able to see that next step. What does that look like? And I think we've, at least the last, Q4 has really been the focus quarter of what does 2020 look like. And folks, if you haven't quite gotten there yet, you still need to be able to, you still got some time. This, Q1 can actually be the component where you look at and you say, okay, what are we going to do? Because I will tell you, it all comes down to two components. I teach a lot of time management pieces. And those two components is, first off, focus and execution. And see, if we don't take the time to actually make that focus clear, we get what we actually create. And if it's a lot of confusion and a lot of, I don't know, I want life just to kind of show up the way it's going to show up, guess what? It's going to show up that way. However, if we will actually pause for station identification and sit there and look at it and go, well, wait a minute. What is it here that we can actually create? Because everything is building on stories. Everything is building on what has happened. And by being able to be very, very crystal clear, which is what I'm calling 2020 for me, is having crystal clear vision as to what we want to be able to create. And my clients are moving forward in that process of creating those visions. But here's the sad part, Mike. When you look over the history of vision and strategic planning, 60 to 90% of strategic plans are never executed.
Yeah.
And so I've partnered with David Cooper-Ryder and the Appreciative Inquiry crew, and I'm learning a process called SOAR. I've leveraged SWOT a lot, but I'm using a process called SOAR now. And what has happened is I've actually inverted that process, that when I use SOAR with an organization to be able to produce what they want to create versus SWOT. And this goes back to the history. Jackie Stavros is the person who actually put this process together first and foremost. And the study from a third-party area has actually identified that 60 to 90% of SOAR plans are executed on and completed. And to me, that is absolutely off the charts. And so I'm looking at that. I've used it, and each time I've used it, my clients have actually created not only crystal clear vision, but they've actually taken it to the execution phase.
I want to talk about two things you just brought up there, which is the implementation and then SOAR. So first of all, I feel like that implementation piece is so massive, and if we had a psychologist on with us today, we could find out possibly what is going on in the brain that causes that. But I would suspect that it's kind of like this. You get to the point where, you achieve this goal and then you think, check the box, I'm there, done, next. And I think that when an organization creates that vision or that plan or that business plan or whatever we're talking about there, they go through so many iterations and so much work that they feel exhausted. And then it gets to the point where, okay, we're to the last piece and we all agreed, we're done. Whew, that was awesome. And then now this next fire we got to put out. And they don't realize that the implementation is the main focus. So I think it's all in the setup. It's all in that mindset of, hey, we got to figure this thing out, and that's step one. Yeah. Step two is now we're putting into place. Let's now continue on and say, okay, what are the steps that we need to put into our daily, weekly, monthly routines to make sure this gets implemented? And what I would ask you is, what would you say to an organization that is to that point where they go, we want to make sure we do implement it? How do we make sure that we don't just let it collect virtual dust on the shelf?
Right. Well, big piece is following up, but also having an executable plan that shows people what are the next steps. David Allen, in his great book of Getting Things Done, talks about the two barriers of being able to really get to execution. And the first barrier is not knowing where we want to go.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we got an idea and a vision, 2020 vision, of crystal clarity of what is it and where is it that we want to go, the next barrier that David talks about is what are the next steps?
Yeah.
And so sometimes we've got to get into that space of what is the granular measurement points that we want to be able to look at to be able to get us to that vision. And see, I think that's the missing that a lot of folks have. They cast the vision and then they walk away. It's like they throw out this fishing pole with a great bait on it, and then they just walk away from the beach side. And what we need to be able to do is come back to this, hold on to that fishing pole, if you will, and actually sit back and go, okay, how do we keep on doing this? Okay, I've got to be able to tug it. I want to be able to bring it in. And once the fish is in the pan, then we can celebrate.
Yeah.
You see? Too often we want to celebrate when we throw the bait out. And it's not about just throwing out the bait. It's about knowing where the fish are, being able to see what that is, and then actually looking at what are the next steps? What are the next steps? What are the next steps to be able to do that? And measuring it and having a conversation where it's okay for us to do the follow-up, not the micromanagement, but the follow-up of being able to talk about what's possible, what are you doing, what's the struggle, and if I need to make mid-course corrections, let's make some mid-course corrections. I do a lot of work around dashboarding, And a lot of times people want to use lagging indicators. And lagging indicators are always going to put you in a reactive mode. So when I'm working with my clients, I'm always talking about what are the KPIs that are leading indicators. Leading indicators are the components where you can actually make mid-course corrections before you look at it as it being a done product. And so we need to put that same philosophy into our vision, our strategic plan, and actually make sure that every action, if you have a team of 500 people within your organization, imagine what you could actually do if you get focused on what is your true priority for this quarter or this month or this week, and let all the talent, of the potential talent of 500 people executing on that possibility. The problem is we've got 500 people scattering in different directions, and then we tell leaders that you're supposed to herd the cats. No, it's not about herding the cats. It's about knowing the talent, and it's about being able to say priority one. There's an organization up here in Sacramento that I've been working with pretty regularly. And in their list of projects, they have 473 projects. Mike, any guess what you would think that this organization made all 473 projects, what priority they put all of them as?
Oh, top.
Any guess? Yeah, they made it number one. All 473 projects are priority number one. Here's the thing. If everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. And organizations are doing that all day long, and they don't understand why they're not tapping the human potential within their organization. It, to me, is absolutely mind-blowing on how we just keep, as Dr. Blanchard would say, spraying and praying. Spraying it out there, praying it sticks, you know?
Let's touch back on that SOAR analogy too, because I think that's really important. It almost makes me think of the concept of, let's set stretch goals, and then you set a stretch goal that nobody really believes is achievable, and then they don't even attempt it. Like someone makes $25,000 a year, and they set their stretch goal to make $4.2 million. It's just not believable. They don't think they're gonna, So how does that SOAR play into believability, and then making sure that it gets done and done the right way?
Powerful question, Mike. Thank you very much. The whole idea, SOAR is a replacement of SWOT. So SWOT, of course, is strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. SOAR shifts, and it's all based on the operating system of appreciative inquiry. And appreciative inquiry is that positive mindset. How can we be able to create a space where it's not about beat down, but it's about build up? And so SOAR is strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and results.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I don't know how it lands for you right there, but for me, when I actually go through those four areas, I feel this freshness. I feel a newness. In fact, I started getting tingles, and it's about, wait a minute. If I really want results, what if I actually cast out what is my aspiration that I want to create for my organization or for my team or even for my career, And if I really looked at strengths and opportunities and didn't worry about the talent. I mean, Marcus Buckingham, when he was working with Gallup in the great book called, First Break All the Rules, he identified what is the distinction between a good manager and a great manager. A great manager doesn't spend time on people's weaknesses. And see, when I first read his book back in '99, I sat back and went, oh my God, I don't want anybody to ever read this, because at that time frame as a training guy, I felt like I was making a living off of people's weaknesses.
Yeah.
And then I started learning. It's like, well, wait a minute. It's not about beating people up about their weakness. It's about looking at folks and seeing the talent within and leverage and developing the talent within the individual, And so in that space, if we're working with SOAR, we're working at what are your strengths? What's the opportunities that those strengths give you in this current environment that we're living in? What aspirations would you like to create? And then let's start making some results. And so that's why it can flip that 60 to 90% that don't execute to actually create 60 to 90% completion, because we are actually building a roadmap to the results.
Yeah, that's huge. I have a feeling that we could probably continue on for about 3.5 more hours just on SOAR alone.
Yes,
so let's wrap up with what do you feel? What is the best way that someone could reach out, connect with you to chat about some training opportunities, maybe to bring SOAR into their organizations to help them SOAR this year, to help them with that vision and clarity? What's some of the best ways that people can reach out, connect with you?
Well, starting this year, in fact, starting yesterday, I launched michaelgrabow.com. There's a place there for people to be able to immediately reach out to me, send me an email. And also I list 5 keynotes or possible workshops that we can actually work with. One being what does it mean to be a 3-dimensional leader? Mapping out the vision for success of your organization. That's where I'm leveraging the SOAR. How do we release the human potential within the organization? And then working with your individual contributors and your team members is helping them discover you at their organization. And you is an acrostic for having people discover their own talent, learning about their organization, and then being able to put together what is their unique contribution to that organization so they can cast their own vision as well. So there's four different programs for folks to be able to jump onto.
Perfect. Well, I'll make sure to include that URL in our show notes so that people can reach out and connect with you. And Michael, I really appreciate your time. It was wonderful getting to know you, and love your approach to some really unique approaches to things we've think about a long time in decades past in traditional training and leadership. So that brought a nice breath of fresh air.
Thank you, sir. And Mike, I love what you guys are doing and being able to help all of us out here on the highways and byways to be able to help put the word out. And thank you very much for the powerful questions and how you showed up. I really appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneurssradio.com.